The
Starting it
broadcast is
now.
now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome to our regular Tuesday webinar. This is Business Performance USA, and I am Dr. Jeff Stewart. I'm one of the founders of Business Performance USA. Business Performance USA is a 501c6 in formation. It is a nonprofit within the state of Oklahoma, and we exist to encourage special interests to converse and exchange information and inquiry with each other, as well as to facilitate transitions, professional development, and the development of business on both the mid and strategic terms. We're very excited today. We have a special guest, a regular special guest on and off during every year, and her name is Kenna Lewis. Now, Victor Dominguez is shown as the host, but Victor is not here. I suspect there is probably a client call which is making that happen. So I'm stepping in, and he may show up at some point and get us going with his usual ability to perceive branding issues in the context of all the other things that go on. Victor is, of course, one of the world's leading brand specialists. Now let's talk for a moment about Kenna Lewis. I've known Kenna for, I think, about half a decade or more, 5 or 6 years. And Kenna is just, well, what can you say about somebody who brings together so many facets that she looks like a fully cut, 50 carat diamond? She's hard-headed and brilliant, and at the same time, she's warm and accepting and totally gets the importance of emotional intelligence in the life of a business culture. Um, Now, the other thing that I'd like to say is that she's a socialista par excellence. Not only does she run several businesses, but she runs a business that brings the social media into the heartbeat of our world today, and is probably the most productive and most efficient person I've ever met in that kind of environment. Kenna just has a gift for knowing where to put the lever. She knows where the fulcrum is in almost every setting, and that gift allows her to be remarkably productive and to move masses of interest your side, your direction, to your side of the equation. So, without any further ado, why don't we begin, Kenna, and we'll talk to you on and off throughout.
Sounds great, Jeff. Thank you for such a wonderful introduction. Can you hear me fine?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. All right. One of the things when you think about social media helping you find your dream job or just employment is that you have to realize that you're a brand. And I know for a lot of people that's difficult. I recently gave this presentation for Army OneSource, and I know that some of the veterans were struggling with that concept that they're actually a brand. But you are, and your online profile is absolutely part of that brand. If you're going to be looking for a job in this day and age, you have to assume that your social media profile will be searched. And that's true whether you're in business or looking for a job. I had a 70-year-old, very dapper man I met in an airport, and he even said, he was between 70 and 75, that he doesn't do business with somebody who doesn't have a Facebook and a Twitter account. So the world has kind of changed. When you're looking for a job, people will look at your social media and your brand. So knowing that, make sure that you take a look at it and see how it best represents you, or if it doesn't, clean it up. Remove pictures and posts that could put you in a negative light. If in doubt, remove it. You know, I had some clients who said, but it was totally innocent. Yeah, but it may not look that way to somebody who's very quickly searching something. So remove it. If you have any profanity, take it off all your social media. If you have inappropriate comments, I had another gentleman who had a wonderful relationship with an old friend from high school, and they're both very sarcastic and very biting, and they love each other to death. Well, if you didn't know that, and you went in and saw their Facebook, you would think, wow, he's really mean. So, what can be in fun and love to you, think about how it looks to someone who doesn't know you. 66% of hiring managers look at your bad spelling and grammar as a negative, and a lot of people won't hire you if you don't write well on your social media. So another thing to think about on your brand. Do you use great grammar? Do you spell well? Because that's part of your brand as well. 1 in 6 hiring managers said severe political affiliation can be negative. Now, this is a tough one because, freedom of speech is so important for each and every one of us. And it's just that in the context of looking for a job, just as in a business, that severe political affiliation, religious affiliation can be looked as a negative to the hiring manager. So I'm not saying don't do it, either make things private or just kind of hold back until after you found a job. And then once you've done that, I want you to proactively go in and review your footprint. This is especially true for anybody coming out of college. I work a lot with some students coming out of school, and we'll sit down and we'll take a look at their profiles, and they have to make some private or they really have to clean them up, but they have to keep on top of it because the party that happened during graduation could be 3-6 months down the road, but they're still maybe looking for a job and somebody tags them in a picture that they don't want anybody to see. So it's real important that you keep on top of that as well. A dear friend of my daughter's worked for the Mitt Romney campaign back when, and the thing that he did was, in the beginning, volunteers and people that they were hiring, he would go back and look at their social media profile. And if they didn't think their social media profile was appropriate, then they weren't hired, or they were put in different spots to volunteer, and some weren't even asked to volunteer. So important to think about it. Definitely people are going to be looking at your social media profile.
Kenna, I
Yeah.
have a question in around that. You said to make your platform private. So I know you can make it private in Facebook, and I know you can make certain aspects of your public page private in LinkedIn and so forth and so on. How do you deal with Twitter and privacy?
Well, Twitter, it's very easy. You can go in and make sure that anybody who sees your profile, they have to request to follow you, and you have to accept it. So Twitter, it's pretty easy to do. You wouldn't want to do that as a business because that's really going to limit your impact. But if you have a personal Twitter account, you can do that. Now, I will tell you there's good and bad in all this. I think Facebook's definitely one that you can make your personal page private, and we'll talk about that in a minute, without really hurting exposure. But sometimes, too, if I go in and see everything's private, or I can't find social media on somebody, that also makes me step back and go, what's going on?
Right.
So,
Okay.
because LinkedIn you wouldn't make private. So that's one you would never really make private except some of your contact information. So I can go on there and find somebody with a lot of information.
Got it. Thank you very much. I look
Sure.
forward to what's next.
Recruiters. This was an interesting statistic. 94% of recruiters are using social media. 73% hire from LinkedIn and LinkedIn only. 51% plan to increase their mobile presence. So they expect to be using, people don't use classifieds in newspapers anymore. So it's really important that if you're going to be looking for a job that you're tuned into social media. Hiring managers, again, 93% look at a candidate's social media profile before making a final decision. If it's between two people and one's got a great social media profile and the other one doesn't, guess who's going to get hired? Job seekers, 90% now are using their phones for searches, and I totally get that. We'll talk even more about that. Very important. 60% of jobs are still found by referrals. It is about who you know sometimes. We all know that. And LinkedIn is a great way to get referrals even if the person is not in your city. So that 60% is really important. And 1 in 10 people don't get hired due to social profiles. Now let's talk about Twitter. We talked a little bit about that. You can set up your profile, which I want you to have a great picture of you on your profile. And even though you only have 160 characters, use it wisely. When I was working with the veterans, really important for the veterans to put on that they're a vet. If you're a licensed engineer, very important to put that on a bio. You can put what you are, what you're looking for, and you can say looking for new opportunities. You'll see that both on LinkedIn and you'll see that on Twitter as well. Do searches. Twitter is great to go in and look because a lot of people put jobs on Twitter. The Department of Kansas, State of Kansas, every job goes on their Twitter account. So you can go there and look at it and see what the latest postings are as well on Twitter. So you can do that search. You can type jobs, you can type companies you're interested in, type the word hiring, hashtag both jobs and hiring, states, locations, the things you're interested in, and see what comes up. There'll be a plethora of tweets, believe me. And sometimes it seems, wow, too much information. So then maybe put in a couple of your search keywords and see what happens on Twitter. Then go follow. Follow businesses and people that you might want to work for. Don't be afraid to send them an occasional tweet. I mean, if you wanted to work for Sprint right now and you were an iPhone lover, I would tweet to Sprint, iPhone forever, with a hashtag and love your company, would love to work for you. Now, a larger company might be a little bit more difficult to get a response back, but if you're looking for mid-sized companies especially, something like that is totally appropriate. And a lot of, especially in middle and small business, will actually probably tweet back with you and see if a connection can be made there. There are dozens of Twitter accounts dedicated to posting job applications, so find those and go to the search bar and type in jobs and then click people on the left-hand side. It used to be accounts and now it's named people. So even though it may be a company, it'll show up under people instead of accounts like it used to. Facebook. Now Facebook's the one where I do believe if you want to make your personal page private, you can do so. So then if I want to see your personal page, then I have to be friends with you. Just remember that if you're tagged in photos that you didn't put up, a recruiter or a hiring person could still find those. So sometimes you have to go back and untag your friend's name and sometimes even ask them, especially I know for a lot of college kids this was true, ask them not to tag you because they would keep tagging you back. But so you can make your Facebook personal page private. Some do, some don't, because they want people to see a little bit more information about it. So sometimes they just try to clean it up. Sometimes now Facebook will let you decide how much security you want. So some things can be posted, like your pictures, nobody can go through those, but they might find out what your interests are. So that would be a great thing to do. You can put your education, your work history, keep your experience updated if you're going to do this with Facebook. And when I talk about finding companies that you're interested in, like their pages. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to see all their posts. So you may have to go back to their pages a couple of times a week to look to see what they've posted. I strongly recommend, if it's a company you want to work with, like a post, share a post, comment on a post. Those things are really important. Again, they see your name. And especially on smaller and mid-sized companies, that can have an impact later on if you actually get in for a job interview.
So can you give
Yeah.
us any sense of how companies are viewing the different media? For example, obviously LinkedIn is a professional career development oriented site. We get that, and companies list themselves there, and not all companies, but a lot of companies. And I understand Twitter is newsy, but Facebook seems to be one of those things that is more business to consumer rather than business to business. How am I wrong in that? Can you correct me in that? And
Well, Facebook has two different faces. It has the personal one where you connect friend to friend or friend to relative. You know, my catchphrase sometimes is Facebook is for people you used to know, and Twitter's for people you want to know. So you have that backyard barbecue, gossipy little element in Facebook personal pages. Now in Facebook business, that's a whole different setup, and that's very much B2B or B2C. But on your personal page, you know, I had a vet who obviously very strong about gun laws and freedom to have guns. And he was posting at a rate of, oh my gosh, sometimes once every 5 minutes, something that was very in your face. And he was getting a lot of negative criticism from friends of his who had an opposite viewpoint. That had to be when we went back, and he had no luck in finding jobs. And when we got together and we cleaned all that up, and I just said, hold it, or, you know, make it totally private if you're going to put that. But obviously, you know, if you're getting this kind of response, you can understand people looking at that, how they're going to feel, whether they believe in your side or not. So once we cleaned that all up, it was amazing how now we were actually able to get him into places for interviews. And I strongly believe they'd look at, you know, some of the small businesses would look at his name and they'd go look at social media. And call me a creeper, if you will, anymore. But when I work for small businesses and I'm helping them hire, you bet I go look at their social media before and Google them, which I think everybody ought to do to see what shows up before we go down the process, which is costly for a small business to hire. So I don't know if that's helpful, but we found it's amazing what you can find out there if you Google yourself and Google people.
yeah, I appreciate that very much. I look forward to finding out how this plays out in the world of LinkedIn as well. Let's hang in.
Okay, LinkedIn. Number one, if there is one social media profile that you absolutely have to be on if you're looking for a job or wanting a better job, it is LinkedIn, period. And LinkedIn is doing some great things. They've kind of changed. It used to be a lot more difficult to put your profile up. Now they really walk you through step by step. So you can have a lot of great information on there. And I have a lot of friends who put, instead of their job title, you know, they may put obviously seeking new opportunities in engineering or chemical engineering or whatever. So right up front, if somebody sees their name, they know what's going on with them. So LinkedIn gives you a great opportunity to put detail in about your skills, your background, and you are 12 times, and I want you to listen, 12 times more likely to be viewed by a hiring manager if you have a complete profile. So you really want to make sure you have as much information. And a lot of times people connect with me, and I'm sure as they do with you, Jeff, I'll go back if I don't know them, and I'm pretty much an open networker connecting with anybody. But if they don't have a profile that looks up to date, to me that looks a little not cool. I don't want to say spammy, scammy, but I don't connect with them. So having that profile is really important for people to connect with you. Um, They've added stuff which is great if they've language, so if you're fluent in other languages, and Jeff, you've got a ton of them, you need to have that on there. Volunteering experience. I had a woman contact me on LinkedIn because she went through my profile. I was on the board of directors of Kansas City Ballet. She wrote me and said, hey, I see you like dance. We went out for coffee, and she became a client. Now, if I hadn't had my volunteering experience on there, that connection would never have been made. So make sure you put that on there. Organizations you're in, honors, awards, test scores, certifications. If you have patents, absolutely put that on, and any publications, articles written, or if you have a blog, and we'll talk about blogging a little bit later. And if you're coming out of college, for those that are doing that, or graduate school, and you're looking, don't underestimate some of the leadership opportunities that you had while you were in college. If you ran a fraternity or a sorority at most colleges, you might have had $1 million budget and were running 320 people. That is a small company. So that can translate into the workforce in some way. So make sure you put those type of experiences on LinkedIn, especially if you're coming out of college and you didn't have a lot of work experience during it, but leadership opportunities and you did them, make sure those are on there. Now, a key thing to do is to join groups, and I think you can join 50 now. Go look at industry groups that you want to focus on. Alumni associations. I told a gentleman to go to his college, join the alumni association group, put that he was looking for a job. And sure enough, a buddy who was in the East Coast saw it and said, hey, my company's hiring in the Midwest, not in your city, but would you be interested? And that connection was made, and he went in and interviewed and eventually got the job. So you just never know. And so use the groups that you know and the connections that you already have, and there are groups out there to do it. Chambers, regional networking groups. I know networking groups that are on there. Join them, because a lot of what you're doing, I always say social media is networking on steroids. It's true in this case as well. Follow companies you're interested in. Connect with people who are working in the companies or careers you are interested in. Now, LinkedIn has changed one thing, which I like and I don't like. For me, people can say they want to connect, and it used to be you'd go actually be able to read the connection note that somebody wrote, because they might say, hey, I want to meet for coffee or whatever. Now, LinkedIn has where you can connect with somebody and you just hit the check mark. So you don't see the connection note anymore. So what I recommend is sometimes make those personal, because some people do still look at them, but if people are in a hurry, they don't. Once you've connected, send a connection, send an email to them through LinkedIn saying, I'm looking for a job in your area, or I'm looking for a job with your company. Are there any tips you can give me? Would you be willing to meet with me on the phone for 15 minutes? If you kind of know them or have a connection that can introduce you, then yeah, go ahead and ask them for coffee. I'm a big believer that if you spend and try to connect with 10 people a day on LinkedIn, 3 days a week, that's 30 people that you've connected to. That's 120 in a month, roughly. And some of those will be really good connections. Some may not. Some may never respond to you. That's okay. But you can really, with only 3 days a week, make a lot of connections on LinkedIn. And if you're a veteran, all you have to do is show that you're a veteran, and LinkedIn will give you 1 year of job seeker premium account just by being a vet. Pinterest, I know. A lot of people go, really? Seriously, Pinterest and job hunting? Well, for the really creatives in the world and tech people, creating a living resume on Pinterest, a lot of people are doing that. And this Rachel King is one I gave you an example of, so you can go look at what she's done. So people get a flavor already of what you are and what you're about, and you kind of, take 5 minutes to sell yourself in a video, and that's happening. There are people who are graphically inclined, and they're posting videos of what they've accomplished in their graphics. And I saw one that was just a tech guy who had built some apps, and he was trying to get into a tech company that was a startup, and so he highlighted what he did. Probably not for everybody, but still a living resume may work for some of you, again depending on what type of job you're looking for. But the other really great thing about Pinterest is there are companies on them. You can find out information. They're great, great job experts with a lot of advice. Career Bliss is one. College Job Boards is another. Penn State actually has a great one for, that newbie coming out of college looking for a job, trying to get in the workforce. They've got great Pinterest boards with a lot of information. And then there's one called the 405 Club, and it caters advice to people who are unemployed. So they're great infographics. There's new techniques on resumes, and you can keep up with what's going on and changing in the job search market really quickly and visually. And for a lot of us, I know we like to see that picture of what's changed, not just hear it or whatever. So Pinterest gives you a great way to do that. Now, I think bloggings can be important. It's not for everybody, and I always think that sometimes, I tell people if they're starting a little company or a little job, or they're thinking about it while they're unemployed, it's a great way, because sometimes people have always said it's easier to get a job when you have a job than when you don't. So you can still look busy, and blogging may give you an opportunity to look that. You can blog about your interests. I had one gentleman, while he was job hunting, was an avid hunter, and so he did this little blog about hunting, and he does have a full-time job now, found one, but he also got approached about doing a hunting app. So you just never know. You can put pictures with every post, which is important if you're going to put it out there. And it may turn into a book. I'm working with a gentleman right now who's actually a senior vice president with Ivy Funds. And he had a son, and he just had this desire to write these little snippets about success and inspiration to his son as he's growing up. They're fabulous. And we sat down and we talked, because he was like, I don't know what to do with all this blogging and social, but whatever. It's a book. It is going to be a book. And so you just never know what it can turn into. And if you get enough hits, you can always advertise on it. And it gives you something to do, because we'll talk about it a little later. I am not an advocate of you searching for a job 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Just doesn't work. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. So you need something. And maybe for some, if you're creative, this can be relaxing and therapeutic. There are free templates all over the websites, and all you need to do is buy a URL and you can start doing that. So that's just another way to get your name out.
Kenna, it's also another way to discover your direction and your purpose. So, for example, I have one mentoring partner who regularly works with high-level situations. And in her case, as a top leader in the country, she was being told by all of her experts, the optimist, positive, successful people she surrounds her with, that she needed to do this next and that next and so on and so forth. Well, as things moved on down the line, she got one ebook out, another ebook out. They were being translated, going into foreign countries. People were getting excited. But you know what happened? In the middle of her blogging and her ebook writing, she discovered that she really didn't want to do the last of a series of ebooks. And instead, what she wanted to do was to work from her new locale and her new environment, and work with the people there. And so I said to her in a mentoring call, how are you going to respond to your audience? Well, I'm now going to blog, but I'm going to blog in the electronic version of our local and regional press and post that and really go local with my global presence. And she said, I think that's really where a lot of the top folks that I work with every day are looking to be anyway. And you know what happened? 3 new
Not,
accounts walked in the door on her as a result. 3, just because she
yeah.
was living where the leadership was living and living her life as a leader locally. And that made so much difference to people who were swamped with expertise day in and day out.
True. I think it's great. I think, it does, and that's why I said especially I was working with some people that layoffs can be depressing, coming out of Afghanistan and places like that can just sometimes, and maybe you never post them, but you do learn a lot about yourself and able to get stuff out in that environment that you might not be able to just talking or so it does. For some people, it's great, and it does focus you on what you want to do with your life. So I'm a champion of it if that's something you want to try. Let me talk about apps for your job search. Boy, as you can imagine in this world, there are some great ones. But first and foremost, you need to have an email. And because believe me, you need that, and you need it on your phone probably because response time may be critical when people are sending out information, so make sure you have one. Gmail works well. Victor's not on the phone, but if this is for him, obviously anything that you sign up with on Gmail, they'll read everything, just so you know that. But it's a great one. People understand Gmail, so a good one to have, and you can set up Google Alerts for top companies when they post jobs. So a good one to have. Now, the next 3 are really critical. Once you've got your profile up and you can do it, for me, doing all the profile work and everything like that's easier on my laptop, but you're going to want LinkedIn on your phone. There's still stuff you can do, connections that can be made. So download LinkedIn. LinkedIn has a new jobs app. I've played with it. It's good. It's got some real-time jobs information coming up, so that's a great one to have. And LinkedIn Connected. At first, when it came out, I was kind of like, well, I don't know what I think about this, and then I started using it. And it allows you to say congrats on new jobs or anniversaries, happy birthdays. I've got 4 coffees, seriously, coming up in the next 2 weeks because I said happy birthday to people. So LinkedIn Connected makes it very simple. It's right in front of you. You don't have to go to LinkedIn. You don't have to look, and you can do it literally when you're taking a health break if you want and make connections. So 3 great ones to have. Now, Indeed's a mobile app, and it's the mobile version of the famous job aggregator site. And the app provides jobs from millions of online postings as well as postings directly from job sites. And being able to view those is a huge convenience. So it's one of the top sites providing this service. The next is Monster, and it's similar. It's been around, one of the oldest job search engine sites available, and it's another essential app. What's funny is I got Indeed and I got Monster, and I played with both. And I put the exact same topics, keywords in, thinking I would get the same jobs posted. I did not even close. So both are really important to have. So have both, and there's Career Builder out there as well, so you can add that. But I just found it interesting that I assumed that they would have similar jobs would come up with the same keywords, but they didn't. Now, Snag a Job. It's another large job search engine like Monster and Indeed, but it focuses on hourly jobs, and it's got 25 million registered users. So if you're looking for a part-time job while you're unemployed, or, because like I said, you need to get out of the house, this is a great one to take a look at for part-time work. Business Card Reader Pro, I really try to recommend people get some of these and tools. You can also use your camera. You can use Evernote. It scans a business card on the spot with your smartphone's built-in camera, and then you can import it simply into your contacts list. Believe me, you can walk out of a meeting and go to your car and put stuff down, and I've heard it, somebody had asked for another reference and they lost the business card. You don't want to do that. So you can put that information down really quickly. You don't have to worry about filing it when you get home, and you've got the person's contact information when you need it. Now, two different apps coming up are Breathing Zone and Calm, and I've had people use both of these with great results because a lot of times for people, especially if you haven't done it in a while, or it's a job you really want, anxiety can set in, that nervousness, sweatiness before a job interview. So these are two to help you ahead of time. Breathing Zone, it's a breathing exercise app that's doctor recommended and will help reduce your stress and anxiety in 5 minutes. And it does simple breathing techniques. So that may help you. Calm is a meditation and relaxation app. They have preset programs from feeling more positive to increasing self-acceptance, or even aiding you in falling asleep in the evenings. It walks you through the process step by step to achieve a more calm state of mind. And for some people, this just really has helped. Some people have downloaded both and used them. One uses Calm more at home and when they start getting anxious, and the other one has used Breathing Zone right before they go into the big interview. Now the next one is called Job Interview Question Prep. Actually, it's kind of a lot of fun. It'll give you questions that you may never think of that an interviewer may ask you, and you want to be prepared for. When I worked at Sprint, I remember I hired quite a bit, and one of the things I'd ask are your 5 strengths and your 5 weaknesses. That 5 weaknesses question caught so many people off guard. It was just amazing. And it was amazing to watch. And I could tell so much by a person. You know, there would be some who said, I don't have any weaknesses. Well, they never got hired, by the way. But just it prepares you. And feeling prepared for an interview just makes you feel so much more self-confident and stronger. So a great app to look at. iCarPark. It uses GPS to help drivers bookmark the location of their parked car. I actually got a call from somebody who was panicked because they had scheduled interviews, different parts of the city, and didn't have a lot of time to go from one to the other, and forgot, so nervous, they forgot where they parked their car in a parking garage. So it's just a little app that tells you where your car is parked. If that could be something that you think might happen to you, why not? So great one there. Evernote. I mentioned it before. Its tagline is remembering everything, and that's what that app does. You can save notes, snap photos, web pages, record audio on it as well. Keeps everything, your receipts for job hunting expenses, all that. And I think you can go on Amazon, and I think there's a great book for $2.99 or $3.99 that walks you through how to use Evernote. And Evernote can make your life, not just your job hunting, but can make your life easier. So another great one to look at. So a couple others that I want to mention is there's one called ZipRecruiter. There's one called Savvy, and it's for business women who are job hunting. And another one is Job Compass. So let's say you don't have a car, you're looking for jobs in your area. Job Compass shows you what's available job-wise or whatever vicinity you give it in. So it's another great one to look at, especially if you want stuff close to home. Now, your smartphone can help you in your job search. And I'm not a selfie person, but the camera is great. Turn it on you right before that job interview and make sure your hair looks great and lunch is not between your teeth. So it can you can take a couple of those and make sure you look good before you walk in. Because sometimes I had one woman who didn't do that, went in thinking she'd go use the restroom right before she went in just to check everything. Well, the restroom was out of service. And they brought her into the interview early, and sure enough, her lipstick was a little bit off, and I think she had a piece of something. Anyway, she was devastated when she actually went back to the car. So, hey, just do it. It works. Microphone, you can use your phone's built-in voice recording function to take down any thoughts or reminders you want to follow up on it following that interview. If somebody says, I want 5 references from you by Tuesday, put that down with the information of the company that wanted that, because you could go to your next interview and they want the same thing but by Monday. So you can keep that straight by using the microphone on your phone, and you can do it hands-free while you're driving. Music. Some people have their song. I like 70s rock and roll. So for me, I will, sometimes that's my pump-up song. So I'm just pumped up and ready and have a lot of energy before I go into a presentation or a meeting or whatever. So obviously music on your phone can be critical. And so can the photo album, because it can keep you calm and grounded before an interview. Because sometimes looking at a place that just, the water or the beach you were at, or looking at your loved ones, can really make you feel confident and relaxed before an interview. So amazing what your smartphone can do even without apps. Before I do my final thoughts, any other questions, Jeff?
Yeah, Kenna, it's really interesting to me that when you're using social media for professional purposes, that the personal aspect of it plays so strongly. And for a lot of people I know in the worlds that I work in, that almost represents a paradox. Would you have any comments you'd like to make about that at this point?
It's really interesting. I do think when I talk about it for looking for a job, and I talk about it in business, it can be very different, and even personally. When I work with a lot of vets, they've been told for so long, do not get on social media, because especially they don't want people to know, and people haven't told them how they can be secure, but they don't want people to know when they're redeploying, because they don't want people knowing that their wife and family is home by themselves. So they've been told for so long not to be on social media, and all of a sudden now they're needing to come back and look at a workforce, and they struggle with the paradox of, now I have to be on it, and how do I show who I am and what I'm about without hurting myself, and not knowing exactly how to do that. So it does take a little bit of time. So that's why I say, if you're looking today, I would probably recommend that you take your Facebook page and play with the private, what can be seen and what can't, first, and then make sure your LinkedIn's done. Twitter, Pinterest is probably the last thing you do. Twitter's just a great way to search if you don't understand Twitter as and looking personally. But, I do think that, like I've told you before on Twitter, I love soccer, and the Sporting Kansas City gets on, and I tweet. I've gotten clients because I support my passions. That, obviously they're not, I don't tweet controversial stuff, because I just know from a business perspective, I know better. But so my love of sporting, or my love of the Royals, or whatever, and I get on, or I've gotten a client because I talked about a great restaurant opportunity or a great restaurant meal I had on Twitter, and they wrote me back. They retweeted and they said, I love that place. And we just kind of talked a little bit on Twitter, and sure enough, we set up for coffee. And so there is that personal stuff that you can give that supports your community, supports what you believe in, supports what you do, so you can get a flavor for what you're about. Volunteering, put a picture up of if you're going to work at Wayside Waves, or, I don't know if you all have that, but working with pets, or Working with children, obviously, if you're working with children, you probably can't take pictures of them because that wouldn't be cool. But you can do things that support your beliefs and volunteer and all that, so people do get a picture of you. And then when you come in for the interview, you can just expound on that. And I've had people call me and say, oh my gosh, they did ask me about my volunteer activity. They had seen what I put on LinkedIn. So.
Well, that's really the thing that I guess strikes me the most. We have an opportunity to be more a function of our goodwill when we're in social media than we do typically walking down the street, in a hurry trying to get from point A to point B. So, um, the thing that you're mostly pushing on is to make sure that that's the way you want to be seen and that that's as good as you want to be. And maybe, be careful if you want to make something better because it may be something that's controversial and that may not be in your better interests in the short term or the long term. Am I summing up correctly or
Yeah,
is
I think that's a good way to sum up. I know there are a lot of trolls on social media, and there are a lot of people that hide behind being anonymous and say really nasty things. And so some people have that bad taste in their mouth because of that. But I can't tell you how much good there is out there too. It's like anything else, the bad gets told before the good and the genuine of people and, helping others. There are great opportunities for Kickstarter campaigns and investing in businesses and startups if that's what you want to do, or even starting a business. There's just a lot out there, and I know it can seem overwhelming, but at least with this, I'm trying to focus you on what's going to be best for you. But social media can be great and positive um, if if you use it well and use it about your genuine self.
Thanks a lot. I really appreciate that. So plans and thank yous and cheerleaders. These are
Yeah,
your big
these
three,
are
huh?
my final thoughts. It's important to make a plan on how much time you're going to spend each day job searching, connecting, sending out resumes, being on social media, and following up. Like I said, I worked with a lot of people when the economy tanked and layoffs, layoffs, layoffs. And I learned with them, not surprising, that 8 hours, 5 days a week, especially when there's a lot of rejection and stuff out there, just got them depressed. Don't do it. That's why I say spend maybe half a day, maybe some days 6 hours, maybe some days two. Get out of the house. Meet people, connect, find a networking group. I will tell you, there are a lot of networking groups where you go in saying, I'm looking for a job. They'll try to help you find one because people really do like to help. So, whether it's a part-time job, whether, I've had a couple people go work at Starbucks because even though it was part-time, when they were doing full-time, they paid medical. So you just work with your kids, do some volunteering, something, but make a plan and stick to it about how many hours a day you're actually going to job search. Number two, thank you notes. They still work. Believe me, they still work. Write a handwritten note to the person that you interviewed with. Um, and if you've got a connection who's referred you, send them an email thank you or a handwritten thank you if they've made a connection for you, because they're going to be more willing to make more connections for you. So just thank you notes are great during job searching. And last, cheerleaders. Cheerleaders, mentors. I'm a big believer, and this isn't even for job searching, but go ask 3 people to help you, to mentor you, to keep you on track, whatever that is. I remember there was the he had retired CFO of Cerner Corporation here in Kansas City. And I got my nerve up one day to ask him to coffee because I wanted to pick his brain about something. He said yes, gracious as could be. We met. He opened up his Rolodex. That afternoon, I had 5 contacts from people that I never would have. And he looked at me and goes, no one's ever asked me to do this before. This is fun. I have the gentleman I spoke about earlier who is with Ivy Funds. He has a mentor cheerleader for him that's in Florida, and he flies to him, doesn't pay him. The guy is a multi millionaire, and he just kind of coaches and mentors him. And again, the gentleman said, nobody's ever asked me to guide them, to help them, to give them my advice. So these cheerleaders, mentors can open up, just buy a coffee for them. They can open up connections for you. And again, I think people genuinely want to do that and keep going. I tell some people get 5. I mean, it's okay. They don't have to know about each other. But use them and learn from them and let them open doors for you. But those are kind of my final thoughts. Just make a plan, stick to it, don't do it all day long, write thank you notes and get a mentor, and use social media.
Do you have the usual final slide on your deck?
Oh, thank you. That one?
Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
I want to encourage everybody who's been online to reach out to Kenna at Social Centric Media. There's her phone number, 816-582-7366, or info@socialcentricmedia.com. Kenna's among the finest in the country as far as I'm concerned, and really, really is effective. Productivity, as we used to say in my circle, out the wazoo. So,
Too kind.
I don't have to be kind. I'm old enough where I just tell the truth. So, again, reach for Kenna Lewis at socialcentricmedia.com, and info@socialcentric, or 816-582-7366. I'm sure she can make a deal. Now, next week, we will be having a presentation by Mary Putnam, who owns a company called Design Your Site. Her presentation is titled Using Your Website for Lead Generation. So that'll tie back through what Ken is doing on job search with social media, and back to what Victor did last week on the lead generations approaches that are out there. And it'll help you understand how you can use simple websites or even just simple pages as a way of generating leads that you might otherwise not have thought of doing. At this point, is there anything else you'd like to say, Kenna?
No, thank you for having me. Love doing these.
All right. Well, we look forward to seeing you in Kansas City soon.
All right.
At this point, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, and we'll carry on. Thank you, everybody, and we encourage you to go out to the Business Performance USA website. You see it at the bottom, or email Victor at businessperformanceusa.org. He is the executive director and is charged with interacting on a regular basis on the site to help people find their way and know what to do. We hope in the near future you'll see a brand new homepage and a brand new set of expressions about our available services and offerings. Meanwhile, take care, enjoy the end of the summer, the beginning of the fall, and remember, it's tradition not to wear white after Labor Day. Bye now.